My guest at this time is 20-plus year WWE referee veteran, our good friend, and the host of It's All Greek to Me here on the Wrestling Inc. Daily, Jimmy Korderas. Jimmy, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Thank you very much. And as we say in Greek, chronia pola, which means basically Happy New Year, many years to come, and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of like a combined greeting, but opa, let's do it.
Opa's easy. Can you say that one more time?
It's hard because you got to kind of roll your H, for lack of a better term. It's chronia pola.
Chronia pola.
There you go.
I feel like I spoke Spanish and not Greek. Anyways, I rolled the R. Jimmy, this was a huge show that just went down over the weekend. WWE Day 1. It would seem to have some WrestleMania implications. Before we get into all of that, the scene really got set earlier, I think late Friday, early Saturday, when the news started to get out that Roman Reigns had tested positive for COVID-19. What was your reaction to hearing that this had happened, Jimmy?
It's funny because I know a lot of people, when they hear news like this, they think, oh, how is this going to affect the card and how's this going to affect the storyline going forward? For me, it was, oh my goodness, Roman Reigns and his situation is right. Especially being immunocompromised with, I just want what's best for Roman Reigns, and I just want him to get better and feel better and get past this so he can do what he loves to do and what we love to see him do. And I'm thinking about the man as opposed to the wrestler, Roman Reigns. That was the first thing that hit me. Then of course, afterwards, you start thinking about, okay, how do they get past this? How do they move forward? But for me, it's more about thinking about the man, Roman.
It is. It's tough to separate the two right now. That was my immediate reaction as well, because I thought that he was maybe not going to be there out of precaution, to know that somebody who's immunocompromised like that got COVID-19, a very, very scary situation. And obviously we want to send our best out to Roman and all of his family right now, because that's a scary spot to be in right now.
Absolutely. And not to capitalize on this, but I'm just as a kind of like as an homage, you know what? I'm acknowledging the head of the table.
There you go. Do you think it was the right call that was made here then to put Brock in this fatal four-way match and walk out as the WWE World Champion?
Okay, this is a kind of like a 2-3 part answer. I like the idea of inserting him in this because it gave him, a prominent role, especially when you advertise someone like a Brock Lesnar, a superstar like that. Putting him in that situation, I thought to myself, the first thing, good call, because you can put him in there. He doesn't have to win the match. There's many ways to get out of this without compromising Brock Lesnar. He doesn't have to be the one to eat the pin, that kind of stuff. And, it could be KO, it could be Seth, it could be anybody else on it. I didn't expect it to be Big E. And at first I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know about this. But then as I watched it back, I watched it back again. Big E did eat 2 big F5s. So for lack of a better term, he had an F10. Right. And again, the way Big E has been presented as champion, again, in my opinion, did him no favors. He wasn't. I don't know how to explain it any better than that. He wasn't, for lack of a better term, booked the way I thought Big E should be. He should have been a strong babyface champion, and he was more of a fun babyface champion as opposed to anything else. And the other thing that really didn't sit well with me was, if Big E was going to be the guy to, as we say, eat the pin in this match, he is the champion. He should be introduced last. And I get it. Brock is a superstar on a different level than everybody else, on a different plateau. He transcends WWE and pro wrestling. People know him. He's a superstar. But at the same time, you have to show respect for your champion and introduce him last. Like traditionally, it just didn't feel right.
Yeah. And it's, it's weird cosmically that, Brock also took the title off Kofi Kingston, although Kofi didn't have near the chance here that the Big E got, right? Mm-hmm. And coming out of this match, at least according to the Observer, it doesn't look like they're going to go back to Big E getting another shot at Lashley. And I mean, anything could change, or Lesnar. Mm-hmm. Anything could change. Maybe we can see it here tonight on Raw. Looks like the bigger plan here is to now build to some kind of Lashley Brock Lesnar confrontation coming out of this.
That's exactly the seed that was planted, especially at the end there when you had them facing off. You had that little moment in the match where, the spear through the barricade and all that kind of stuff. So seeds were planted throughout the match without getting that direct face off. I mean, Lashley was outside the ring, Brock was in. That we had the little distant face off. Maybe we see something a little bit more intriguing tonight on Raw. I'm curious now to see what happens and where it goes from here. And I guess that's the goal. You want people to tune in and again, no disrespect to Big E whatsoever, because I like Big E as a talent and he's a great guy and all that stuff. But at the same time, you think about it, like I said earlier, Brock is a superstar on a different level. And, what can I say? Maybe they're looking to bump numbers, to push the buttons, to get people to tune in. Maybe Brock's the way to go. We shall see.
Yeah, well, it looks like the playbook got thrown out here, right? Like whatever they had planned dramatically had to be overhauled, right? We don't know exactly what would have happened with Brock and Roman, but there was this graphic that WWE leaked on socials that plainly says under Brock Lesnar's face, Big E defeats these other three men to retain the title. So it would seem the plan was to have Big E initially walk out of day one as still the champion, maybe feuding with somebody else, maybe I don't know. We'll get to the mid stuff here later. But like now you have Brock Lesnar in the situation where he's the champion, Roman's still Universal Champion. It sounds like maybe that they're going to go for a title versus title deal or WrestleMania if they could keep the train on the tracks. At this point, big if, I guess,
Yeah, it's dedefinitely a possibility. And we also have to figure out how Paul Heyman figures into this, because Brock Lesnar continuously brings up the name Paul Heyman, that he's his advocate, so to speak. So who knows? Maybe this is a last minute way for Paul Heyman to rule both Raw and SmackDown.
It's a good question. I was actually going to ask you, like, what do you do with a Heyman? The Usos retained the tag titles. They were kept strong. Jimmy and Jay, fortunately, we've had a chance to see more of their personality, before Roman came back. I mean, what do you do in this situation now that, the key figure, I guess, for SmackDown likely won't be there this week, and we don't really know how long until Roman may come back into this,
Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma to be in, because your main champion on your SmackDown brand is out indefinitely. We don't know how long it's going to be, and of course his safety and it comes first and foremost, and it's it has to be, and that's the road you have to take. But at the same time, when you think down the road, storyline wise, how do we do this? How do we proceed? How do we go forward? Because the big story on SmackDown was Roman and Brock.
Right.
You can continue that leading up to WrestleMania. You can build to a big, like you said, title versus title, a huge unification match. And that makes that championship mean so much more, that this one champion could basically go to both brands and be a special champion. You don't see him every week. I know people will say, well, we want to see our champion more. Your champion should be special, and you should only see him sporadically, because it makes you want to see him that much more, at least in theory.
Yeah. So where does this leave Big E now? I mean, I think we both agree that this title run, I would call it a missed opportunity, but I don't really know what they wanted to do with Big E as champion, right? I mean, maybe it was enough to just say he had a title run. I don't know, but like there was never really quite a meaningful foil there for him this whole time. He just kind of existed and spread positivity. I mean, where does this leave Big E on the other side of this? Do you think they'd go back to the well and give him a major title again after this run?
Maybe down the road, but I don't see it happening in the near future. What I can see happening possibly is him going back over to SmackDown, kind of reuniting with his brothers and having the New Day with Big E as maybe a foil for Roman Reigns.
That'd be good.
And you still got, Kofi and Xavier battling the Usos, because as we saw on Saturday night, what a match. My goodness. People complain about, well, WWE doesn't give a, what about tag team wrestling. And then we get a match like that and we go, wow, somebody cares about tag team wrestling, and it's the Usos and the New Day. So maybe it's the New Day versus the Bloodline. We don't know. And then you can down the road introduce a new member to the Bloodline who's down in NXT. Maybe that, there's options at least for Big E. I don't want to write him off completely, because you can rebuild him again,
Yeah. Well, we do know over on SmackDown, somebody that's not going to be around. It looks like they got maybe they'll be back, but they got taken out backstage. Drew McIntyre. It would seem this would be a great time to have somebody like him step up. Interesting. I mean, he did get the win over Madcap Moss, but interesting that he got
Mhm.
taken out backstage.
Mhm.
I think it was Fightful that reported that he might be out, like dealing with some kind of lingering injury that he has been going along with for a while now. I don't know. What did you think about the way Madcap Moss and Drew McIntyre worked together on Saturday night?
I think Madcap Moss has a lot of potential. I mean, I saw some stuff there. His stuff is very solid.
Yeah.
You know, it's little things to me that stood out, like the way he hit the ropes, the way he hit the turnbuckles. It meant something as opposed to just running the ropes and bouncing off and that kind of thing. He hits the ropes, he hits the turnbuckles. All this stuff looks good, and he's a big guy. You know what I mean? And when he pulled out cool moves, he did them not just to do them; they all meant something.
Do you like the Happy Corbin Madcap Moss tandem, the bad jokes, the sweaters? Are you digging this?
A little bit. It's starting to grow on me, kind of like the RK Bro thing. At first, I was like, "Oh, I don't know about Randy hooking up with the Spicoli character and all that kind of stuff." You know what I mean? How's this going to work? But they're awesome, and this is starting to grow on me. And as someone who traveled with Bad Joke Tony Chimmel all those years, this kind of hits close to home because, as a lot of people refer to him and I, as we were Waldorf and Stadler.
Okay.
You know, I'll get a quick story here. I remember one time Chuck Palumbo somehow got left behind at the arena, and Tony and I were on the crew, and he says, "Hey guys, can I hook up with you guys to get to the next?" I don't know whether they were ribbing him or he was taking too long, and they just said, "The hell with this, we love it." Anyway, yeah, Chuck, jump in with us. No big deal. We'll give you a ride to the next town. It's cool. So we're in the car, and he's listening. He says, "You guys are Waldorf and Stadler." You know what I mean? It was like, but anyway.
So I mean, they're making bad jokes and cackling at everybody. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, pretty much. We solve the problems of the WWE in the car. We solve the problems of the world in the car, everything, and also listen to every 70s channel we could find. And that was the other thing too. He says, "Jimmy, how do you know the words to every 70s song ever written?" I said, "When I hear them, they come to me. But if you ask me what are the lyrics of this song, I couldn't remember."
You brought up Randy Orton and RK Bro.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is Randy Orton kind of in a phase of his career now where he's just like making a case for greatest wrestler of all time? Like, it's pretty wild to me. You start to hear the statistics, most pay-per-view matches of all time. It's pretty crazy to me where this guy's at in his career right now.
It is phenomenal. I mean, we saw from the beginning the natural ability of Randy Orton, but he has, believe it or not, grown into that conversation now. Does he belong on that Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling as one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time? Because he can do it all. He does everything so well, and it's so crisp. And it's whether it's his in-ring ability and what he does in the ring, whether it's just talking, everything he does is just so good. He's in that conversation. He's definitely in that conversation of greatest of all time.
Do you foresee another 1-2 couple title reigns? I think he's 3 away from beating the record. I think he's at 14 right now.
Maybe not beating the record, but I could see. Yeah, you know what? You talk about who's next for Roman Reigns.
Yeah, or Brock or whoever,
or Brock. Yeah,
Brock's gonna need somebody. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, Lashley's got there right now, but I don't really know like when Roman will be back. Like, I'm still kind of skeptical about that. I try not to think about like, who do you book with a Roman Reigns? Because if they wanted to book someone, they had Brock Lesnar, right? Yeah. Like, if they're willing to ice it like this for now, I don't know, like exactly when we're going to get a Roman Reigns back.
Right. And you got to, like I said, it's someone like Randy Orton who can make a rivalry with Brock Lesnar very believable. And you can believe that Randy is capable of beating the Beast. One of the reasons why is that RKO finish has been protected since day one, and to this day has been protected. And it's just amazing because when you see it, game over.
Well, and people, Riddle's out there. He's talked some trash about Brock Lesnar, I believe, and wanting that match as well. I don't know, maybe something to play around with there on a Monday Night Raw one night if you want to.
Yeah, and you could bring in some MMA background from both men into the conversation as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, how about Liv Morgan? How did Liv hang with Becky in your opinion? And similarly to kind of a Big E, where is Liv now? What do you do with a Liv Morgan in the wake of 2 losses back to back to Becky Lynch?
I thought she performed well against Becky. The match was good. I just don't think Liv, in my opinion, is ready for that spot just yet. She, not from an in-ring standpoint, it's more from a character standpoint and working on her character and working on her ability on the microphone. I don't think she's there yet.
Okay.
To be that level, to carry the women's division just yet.
Okay, but someday. I mean, I think a lot of people see it there, right?
Oh, definitely, it's there. It needs to be worked on.
Yeah, and Becky really I'll give Liv credit for getting Becky back on the tracks as a heel because right before this program with Liv, she was feuding with Charlotte, and I don't think you could have got more sympathy on a heel than after that program and watching like a broken, devastated Becky Lynch talk about like what this feud did for her mental, state. So,
right.
I'm interested, because now that Becky's a top, she's definitively a heel again. People are booing her again, which is good for them if that's what they want her to be. I don't really know what's next for Becky now. I don't know who she steps to.
Yeah, and like you said, they were, at least from what I was hearing on my television, there were some boos for Becky finally, which is the desired reaction by the company. But at the same time, Liv wasn't getting that babyface pop that you wanted her to get. They were still a little bit quiet for her, and that's not the reaction you want.
Well, a woman who got a big reaction at the Rumble was Beth Phoenix, coming out to help Edge even the odds against Miz and Maurice. What'd you think of Beth's big return here? And it definitely looks like we're going to get more between these four, 100%,
Yeah, it definitely looks like it's leading down the road to a mixed tag, Edge of the Team Hall of Fame versus Miz and Maurice would be cool to see down the road. But at the same time, it was cool seeing Beth, but at the same time, it was, at least she should have came down to ringside instead of just stand there. I just felt that it was kind of, okay, have her walk down, then Maurice can back up, and they don't have to have physical contact.
Sure.
Just that little bit of and make her kind of back up and that sort of thing. And Miz could then be saying, hey, you back up, don't touch my wife, before he turns and eats a spear.
It did seem a little like, I agree. Miz just turning around and looking like a dummy and then just eating that spear for the finish. I mean, was a little to the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did what needed to be done,
Right. But the match itself, I thought, was very good. I liked it because it told a great story. Miz, in my opinion, is one of the underrated heels out there right now. But at first, I thought maybe a little longer than it needed to be. But at the same time, it was at a different pace than everything else in the night.
Sure.
And it was a nice change of pace.
Man, well, kind of like Orton, and I know that there was a big gap there where Edge wasn't competing, but there's really like a lot of light bulbs over that guy's head have gone off. And same with Miz right now. It's interesting to me, before we get to the kind of last thoughts thing that I have to ask you here. You got Brock Lesnar, Raw champion, Becky Lynch, Raw champion, Hall of Famer Edge, and Beth Phoenix feuding with Miz and Maurice, soon to be Hall of Famers, at least one of them. That's a lot of meat for Raw. And when you look over at SmackDown with Roman Reigns removed from the equation, I mean, we're left wondering what the Usos are going to do. And Madcap Moss and Drew McIntyre, or Baron Happy Corbin, walked out as the biggest heels, active heels on the show after taking out Drew McIntyre. It's interesting how right now I feel like Raw maybe has like more to it than SmackDown, which has not been the case in a long time.
No, it looks like Raw right now has the bigger star power roster. Let's put it right now, that way, especially with Brock as your champion, because like I said before, Brock is the biggest, I hate to put it this way, but the biggest superstar in the company right now from a casual fan standpoint, as someone that outside of hardcore fans, everybody knows who Brock Lesnar is. You know what I mean? And some people may not know who a Big E is. And again, that's no disrespect to Big E. It's just that to wrestling fans, they know who he is and that sort of stuff. But to your point, definitely Raw looks more stacked than SmackDown right now. And I think maybe that's intentional by the company to try and build the numbers on USA, because Fox numbers are, I guess they're happy with the numbers right now.
Surprisingly consistent and high.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll see how that changes now without Brock and without Roman for the foreseeable future, at least anyways. Hopefully that doesn't change, but again, we shall see.
All right. So this brings to my final questions here. The Rumble is right around the corner.
Hmm.
So let's get your picks here, Jimmy. Who do you think will start with the men? Who do you think would be a great Royal Rumble men's winner? And also, why is it Johnny Knoxville?
I have no idea why it was Johnny Knoxville. Is he willing to take more punishment than Drew Carey did back in the day? And
I
by
don't
the
know.
way, to those who always asked about it, I gave the money back.
Oh, did you? You gave the money back to Drew?
Yeah. I just held it for him.
Why did you?
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You got to go get on Prices Right. Get that money put back in your pocket, man. You know?
No kidding. Or win a brand new car or something like that.
I love it. Go out to LA, take a shot. You know, if you share that story when they're vetting contestants, you probably have a pretty good chance of getting picked for the row.
Hey, you never know. I have to think about it, man. Oh, okay. You just put a thought in my head. Way to go, Nick.
2022, the year Jimmy wins a car on The Price is Right.
Yeah, there you go. The Showcase Showdown.
I recorded on my DVR. I'm a big Price is Right nerd. Anyway, awesome. So who do you think? Who do you think would be a good men's? It's tough now, man, because everything got reshuffled all of a sudden, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like you could look for Drew, who is looking like he's going to take a little time off. Will he be ready for the Rumble? Maybe that's the plan, for Drew to be the guy. And then Drew goes to SmackDown to challenge a Roman Reigns when he returns. So that would be an interesting matchup. Maybe we do get the Brock and Lashley match at the Royal Rumble, and Brock ends up winning in some kind of controversial fashion, and then Lashley enters himself into the Rumble and wins that and re-challenges him for WrestleMania. Maybe
I almost feel like it's got to be somebody that's not already or recently been in the main event picture, which is tough
because that's the thing.
It's such a small pool of people that would, you know, because who do you go? Shinsuke? I mean, I guess like maybe out of left field. You know, when I think about like somebody the fans would just get excited about, would just be like a Braun Breaker, you know?
Oh, that would be interesting. But I just think I see what you're saying here, but at the same time, I just think it's too soon for him. It's too short a span. Mind you, it would be a shocker. So, it definitely would be a shocker.
I just don't know that does Lashley winning or McIntyre winning or Kevin Owens winning? Does any of that grab people? Yeah. You know, I don't really know, right?
Or is that the beginning of the rebuild of Big E?
Maybe.
The way you could do it is have him enter at number 1.
Sure.
And last the entire Rumble and win it. I don't know.
I guess.
It's a tough call.
And like if you're trying to get to title versus title at Mania, right? Do you just have Brock just say, I want to enter this thing and, you know, be the guy to go take out Roman Reigns at WrestleMania and do it my way? I guess you could do something like that, you know?
True.
Or the authority comes down on Brock Lesnar and makes him put the title on the line in the Rumble, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Again, it's a tough call because you need someone to be that guy. And man, like you said, I'm trying to think of who could be that guy. And as far as new guys go, like you said, Braun Breaker is a possibility. It's just how they present him.
Sure. How about on the women's side? Who would grab you on the women's side?
I think, in my opinion, the obvious choice for me is Bianca Belair.
Again, right? Yeah, you go back to back. I agree, 100%.
Yeah, and she goes to Mania, and she, maybe main events the first night again.
Yeah, taking out Becky, right? Getting her title back, tell the whole thing full circle, something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, man. Those vignettes for her are just so good. Her and Liv Morgan both. Those vignettes are just very powerful.
Yeah. Again, but the only thing with Liv Morgan is when she's like in the ring with a microphone or she's cutting a promo, it needs a little work there.
All right. Well,
because there are some people who could take the scripted promo and make it feel like their own, and then there's some people who feel like they're reading.
Okay. Hey, that's fair. And sometimes it just takes a little tweak or something to happen. You get bumped in the head, or they make you try something out in a crazy direction. Like, remember how excited we were when Alexa Bliss started doing the Fiend stuff, and then after a while we weren't huge, but it was like cool to see her doing something different. Maybe just change it up a bit for her.
Exactly, just a little tweaks here and there.
All right, Jimmy. Well, thank you so much for talking WWE Day 1 with me. What do you want to put over here before we wrap up the show today?
Obviously, I want to put over this show. Thank you for having me on. I very much appreciate it. And I want to thank the Wrestling Inkers. What do you call the fans of Wrestling Inc?
Rest. That's a great question. Winkers, the winks,
Wrestling Inkers?
the winkers,
Winkers?
winkers.
There we go.
I just said
Anyway,
winkers a dozen times. That's all I
yeah,
can think of right now. Wink.
yeah. But thank
Yes.
them all for tuning in and hopefully being entertained by what we talk about. And also, you can find me on my social media at Jimmy Korderas on Twitter, at Real Jimmy Korderas on Instagram, and also you can check out my Ref and Rants, which returned today after a week of holidays. And hopefully, everyone has a wonderful 2022 and enjoyed the holidays they just had.
Awesome. And thank you, Jimmy, for being my first interview of 2022, buddy.
No, thanks for having me as the first interview. That's awesome.